夢は実現するものの叶うもの中心サンダーライガー入場
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the 100 greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spencer.
I'm Thunder Liger!
God
damn it!
Well, as I cleared the mist from my eyes, Landon, we would like to welcome you to episode number 25, the silver anniversary of Last Match Standing, as a matter of fact.
Kind of hard to believe we've been doing this for 25 years, guys.
Yeah. 25 years.
Damn, y'all look great.
I feel really, really good about it.
Thank you.
And today, actually, since we mentioned 25 years, we're going to talk about a guy who's been around for longer than that, right?
Way longer.
And boy, how grateful were we to be able to watch his retirement match at Wrestle Kingdom 14 very recently, because today, from October 20th, 1996, from Kobe World Hall, from Kobe, Hyogo, Japan, we have Jushin Thunder Liger versus the Great Muta.
What an iconic match.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. I mean, just those two names alone. You just read those two names and you automatically know we are in for a hell of a contest.
Oh, yeah, and this match is notable for more than just that. This is the debut of Kishin Liger.
It is. It absolutely is.
Kishin Liger was the evil alter ego of Jushin Thunder Liger. Only appeared 4 times. This was the first time.
Yeah, it's really incredible. I can't wait to get into it. And it's fun because you have these two larger-than-life characters, and we'll get into a little bit of the backstory and why this is such a big deal that they clash here. But it's interesting because not too long ago, there was a joint Ring of Honor NJPW G1 Rumble. And it was essentially a Royal Rumble style with both like 15 from ROH and 15 from NJPW. And there was a moment at the very end of the Rumble where it just gets down to the Great Muta and Jushin Thunder Liger. And you get this callback to this wonderful 1996 moment. And it was just a really, really special moment.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait to jump in here just seeing that.
Yeah, come on. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Liger and sort of his career and how grateful we are to have been able to witness so much of it, right? But the Great Muta, I mean, arguably equals, right? They just two incredible, legendary characters, and this match is sort of, almost a full, perfect sort of sample of what these two guys were for their entire career, and it's totally worth the watch.
This match is unlike any wrestling match I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's not like a wrestling match. Watching this match feels like watching a horror movie.
Yeah, I would go with that.
I think that's a good way to do it because, and we'll talk about it a little bit as the match goes along, but the Great Muta is scary.
Yes,
that's
he
a
is.
scary dude.
That's an understatement.
And the crowd is terrified.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting here watching it, 24 years later, and I'm terrified.
I got to say, I met Muta at WrestleCon 2014, and he was fucking scary there.
I believe it.
Of course, he's wearing his mask, and he had, like, the green tongue, and I'm like, okay, this is uncomfortable. I shook his hand. I said, thank you, and he bowed to me. And I got a picture with him. It was amazing.
And I would like to walk away now before anything else happens.
Because his promo picture was just him, like no makeup, just the Great Muta. You show up and he's got the mask and he's got the mask on, the contact lenses in, and he's got the green.
And all of a sudden, his line is halved.
No. He had like the third longest line of the day.
Sure.
There's only 2 people longer lines than him, and that was Kurt Angle and the Dudley Boys. The only 2 had longer lines than him.
Well, we couldn't be more happy to honor Jushin Thunder Liger by dedicating this episode to his career. So we're really sad to see him retire, but extremely grateful to have seen so many of his great matches.
Yeah, and we could have chosen a handful, right? There was any number of matches that could have made this list. And quite frankly, as we go along, we have 75 to go, right? So there could be more Liger matches on this list, but this one just felt super appropriate, right? If we're going to honor Liger, we wanted to do it in a way that also sort of encapsulates two great characters at the same time. And so as Liger has retired, it was really, really fun and tough to pick the match that we wanted to do, but I think we settled on the right one.
I agree. So Kaiji Muto started out as an amateur wrestler in high school. After losing the finals of the national championship, he applied to the New Japan Dojo, but was not accepted because he was not tall enough. Instead of giving up, he decided to uproot his life with no money and move over to Mexico to pursue his dream of becoming a pro wrestler. Seeing this, New Japan decided, okay, maybe he's serious about this. So they decided to take him back, and he trained alongside the likes of Kaiji Muto, Masahiro Chono, and Shinya Hashimoto. He actually had a classic match against Shinya Hashimoto in the mid-'90s, which we may talk about at some point. It's like a classic big man versus little man situation. Mm-hmm. In 1984, at the age of 20, Yamato made it to the finals of the Young Lion Cup tournament, and the following year participated in the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship League, but lost to Black Tiger. Paul, do you know who Black Tiger is?
If I remember correctly, wasn't Black Tiger Eddie Guerrero's dad?
Actually, Black Tiger, there were 4 iterations of Black Tiger, so I'm not sure if maybe one of the later ones, but the original Black Tiger is none other than Rollerball Rocco.
Oh my God!
Oh yeah,
I have been campaigning for 3 months now to get a Rollerball Rocco match in. If that's how we got to do it, that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah, there are some epic matches on a New Japan World that I'm going back and watching right now. Black Tiger has some amazing matches against Tiger Mask, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we covered one of those. But anyway, yeah. His work with Rocco actually continued in England under the All-Star Wrestling banner, where pre-Liger, had several back-and-forth battles over the World Heavy Middleweight Championship. Oof. And in 1987, Yamato made his way over to Canada to train in the infamous Stu Hart Dungeon.
Stampede.
Upon his return to Japan later that year, Yamato would create what is now seen as one of the most exciting aerial maneuvers in all of professional wrestling, and that would be the Shooting Star Press, which was actually named after the Fist of the North Star manga, which I think is interesting.
Well, most of his gimmick was pulled from manga. So.
Yeah, after the debut of his new character, Jushin Thunder Liger, he went on to capture the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship 11 times.
Well, I mean, when you wrestle for almost 40 years, I mean...
That's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, legendary doesn't begin to describe it.
So when I was doing research for this match, I found an excellent article from Voices of Wrestling. And if you haven't heard of Voices of Wrestling, they have a great podcast network, blogs, match reviews. It's all really, really good stuff. But they had an article about the career of Jushin Liger, and they talked about growing up in the 90s, we watched whatever wrestling was just on cable TV, whatever pay-per-views were popping up. We asked our parents if they would graciously purchase that pay-per-view for us, and after we asked for 13 times, they'd say yes. But the only way to see any past wrestling matches or any kind of overseas wrestling matches was you have to go over to the video store and hope that they had some on the shelf.
Either that or tape trading, but that was hit or miss.
Right. I mean, I remember going with my dad every weekend, and I'd pick up 3 or 4 old wrestling tapes, and that's how I saw a lot of the older matches.
I did the same thing.
It isn't until recently that so many people are getting to see some of these legendary matches between the most talented stars all over the globe. So we spoke briefly on our Omega Okada episode about how in New Japan, heavyweights and junior heavyweights rarely interact.
Nope.
There are obviously exceptions, but particularly in the 90s and earlier, they made a point to keep those weight classes separate.
Well, I mean, in Japan, they treat it like it's a shoot. Even the fans know it's not, but they still treat it like it is. They treat it like they're going to a legitimate sporting event, and it's treated very seriously. The only way you have inner weight classes, it's never going to be for a title. It's usually going to be for they have a grudge. They have a score to settle, so this is a non-sanctioned match between these two, and then it's going to go back to normal, and then they'll like feud with their own weight class.
Right. So this, like you said, there are very few exceptions. It has to be a really big deal for someone who is not in the same weight class to collide. So by 96, Liger had already reached legendary status. He was a 7-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion by this time, including one reign that lasted 628 days.
Beat that, Brock.
Still the record for still the record as far as I know. And the Great Muta, on the other hand, had won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship a few years prior and held it for 400 days. So these are two larger than life characters with some serious mileage as champions under their belt.
Oh yeah.
So Kobe World Hall, the town of Kobe was still recovering from a devastating earthquake at the time. Mm-hmm. So this is a really important event overall just for that city. On October 20th, 96, the show in Kobe World Hall was in the middle of the NJPW Super Grade Tag League Tour. And at this time, Liger had been the face of the junior heavyweight division for years. So from the Super J Cup to the J Crown, he unified 8 championships into one. Junior heavyweight wrestling was hot, and Liger was pretty much to thank for that. And not just in Japan. I mean, Liger had classic matches with Flying Brian Pillman, Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, just to name a few.
Well, he had WCW pay-per-view matches at this point.
Right, and you think about 1996. We've covered matches from the cruiserweight division, so to speak, in WCW from this time period. So it's definitely an era where cruiserweight, light heavyweight, junior heavyweight, whatever you want to call it, is starting to really make its impact, and Liger was at the forefront of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it could be argued that he's why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that. But what I always thought was fascinating about like getting the cruiserweights, especially getting the luchadors in there. Do you know who's responsible for getting the luchadors in WCW?
Who's that?
Conan.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they brought in Conan, and he's like, hey, you like me? Here's 6 guys you need to get in your company. And those guys were like Eddie, Ray, Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis, and Dean Malenko. Get these 5 guys.
And that makes a lot of sense because you see Conan, like, even his on-screen character is all about promoting luchadors.
Oh, yeah. Like, he would come out in these ridiculous outfits and then try to do lucha, but he was way too big. I love you, Conan, but you were way too big to be doing those spots. You were a fucking amazing wrestler, and you would kick my ass. But you were just too big.
But not the least of which, all these headline-making cruiserweights, not the least of which was the very first match to air on WCW Nitro. You remember what it was?
Oh, shit.
Jushin Liger.
It was, wasn't it?
Versus Flying Brian Pillman.
Oh, man.
I knew that because I am the current last match standing.
Oh, you knew that.
I
sure.
did. I was waiting. I didn't want to give it away.
But despite all of his success, Liger was intent on showing the potential of his junior heavyweights even against opponents in the heavyweight division. So in February 94, Liger had a memorable singles clash with Shinya Hashimoto, which we touched on briefly. He was only narrowly defeated. So they're really kind of showing that, hey, the junior heavyweights, maybe they know what they're doing.
Yep.
And now, at the Kobe World Hall, he had another opportunity to prove himself against the Great Muta. So Muta is probably the most eccentric character in NJPW. Unpredictable.
And that's saying a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's completely unpredictable.
Oh, he is. He's like fucking crazy.
But he's over with the crowd.
Oh, they love him.
No matter how devious his tactics, it doesn't matter. Because, this guy is straight up the most intimidating wrestler I've ever seen. The dude is scary.
He is scary. He was, like, when I met him, he was a 60-year-old man, and he was scary.
Kaiji Muto was a judo black belt with experience in many national competitions prior to being trained by Hiro Matsuda in the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo, having his first pro wrestling match in 1984. Muto first appeared as the Great Muto in NWA on March 18th, 89 edition of WCW Saturday Night, although announcer Jim Ross pronounced his name as the Great Muta. Thus,
here we are.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim Ross.
And that's a good thing because like he's had a career of like almost 40 years with that name.
His manager, Gary Hart, introduced him as the son of the Great Kabuki, whom Gary Hart also had managed for years.
Fun fact about the Great Kabuki.
Uh-huh.
He invented the green mist.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, well, that explains why Muta
Yeah.
took the green
He was
mist.
the first. They called it poison fog back in the 80s, but he was the first person to do it.
There you go.
Huh.
And it also explains why current day Kabuki Warriors,
They use
Asuka uses it. Yeah. Interesting.
That is fantastic.
I know, right?
Way to go. That's good stuff.
He wrestled his first match under his new persona on April 2nd of that year against Scott Casey, and Muta would feud with stars like Paul's favorite, Lex Luger,
I'm wearing his shirt right now.
Ric Flair, and Sting, from whom he would capture the NWA World Television Championship on September 3rd of 1989. And so, yeah, Muta and Sting actually had a lot of classic matches, which
Yes,
I'd
they
be
did.
really interested to go back
Yeah.
and see.
Yeah.
In 1990, Muto would return to New Japan, capturing the IWGP Tag Team Championships with Masahiro Chono. In 92, Muto competed in the G1 Classic, doubling as the NWA World Championship Tournament, where he defeated Barry Windham and Steve Austin before losing to Masahiro Chono.
There's a match I'd like to watch.
Right? Returning to his great Muta persona, Muto would win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and go on to participate in what has been called the bloodiest match in pro wrestling history
Jesus.
against Hiroshi Hase.
That's a bold statement.
I think we need to pause what we're doing right now and watch that.
Right.
Yeah.
In 93, Muta would finally defeat his former partner Chono to become both IWGP and NWA heavyweight champions simultaneously. Eat your heart out, Tetsuya Naito. At this point, Muta would return to wrestling under his real name, only bringing back the Great Muta for special occasions. In 95, Muta would become the first of two men to win the G1 Classic as IWGP Heavyweight Champion. I mean, your career can't get much more illustrious than that.
No, it really can't.
Needless to say, Liger has the odds stacked against him for this one.
Oh yeah, I mean anybody stepping in the ring with the Great Muta has like the odds. I don't. It doesn't matter. Like it's Muta.
You know, so picture it now, right? And the good thing is that this match is on YouTube, so you don't even have to
Yeah,
have
it is.
you know, a world like Landon was talking about. You can just look it up on YouTube. It is from October 20th, 1996, and referee Red Shoes Uno.
I know.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah,
Gotta love it.
full circle.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
It's our third New Japan match, and he's done all three.
Yeah, he has.
times.
He has. No commentary, right? Because this is almost it's a house show kind of, right? So it's got that feel. So the only voice you really ever hear is the ring announcer, and Paul did a wonderful job in the intro.
Well,
sounding
I
like him.
love because it starts. There's no really announcement. It just music starts playing, and then all of a sudden you see Liger come out, and you just hear "Thunder Liger," and it's not racist because I'm just quoting.
I feel so appropriated.
Shut the fuck up. You're not Japanese.
But these two guys, they make their entrance, and I mean, just looking at them, they look like manga characters. So when they come down,
Well, I mean, Thunder Liger's entire look is based off a manga character.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so Liger's theme music is iconic because, of course, it was literally the theme music of the Jushin Liger anime.
right, makes sense.
And I always thought that he looked so cool. He basically looks like a Power Rangers villain fused with a Megazord. He just looks so fucking cool. And even though he's never officially been in any WWF games or WWE games, you could always create him. They
Yeah.
always had his
Yeah.
outfit and his moveset.
Yep. And guys, do you remember the absolute insane moment where Liger showed up to take on Tyler Breeze at
I
NXT
do
TakeOver?
remember that.
Yeah,
I mean, I will never forget that moment. I mean, it's just he is one of the most iconic names in wrestling history. So, but Muta's entrance here is
scary.
absolutely terrifying.
Well, this evil red light comes on, and they're playing this this music straight out of a horror film. And then when I saw this, I'm like, that fucking Shao Kahn? Because
Well,
he comes out.
he's got the Oni mask on.
Well, yeah, he's got just straight up a metallic skull.
Yeah.
So he comes out and he's wearing this very Shogun style helmet with this chrome skull mask.
Eat your heart out, Triple H.
Oh my God, yeah, 11 years before Triple H would do it. And then he's wearing this really bulky I was thinking like a Shogun gi, but it has a dragon that is hanging off of his shoulders.
it's fantastic.
It's so fucking awesome.
It is so good.
And I'm thinking, he's not going to be able to get in the ring with that. It's too bulky. And he slides right under the bottom rope. I'm like, okay, never mind.
So they both get in the ring, and the crowd loves both of these guys.
Oh, they
you
are
can
going
tell. I mean,
crazy.
you can tell they're terrified of Muta, but they love him, and they love Liger. I mean, what's not to love? So these two guys come out, and you're like, oh, like this crowd is ready to go. And then Muta removes his mask,
And he's wearing what I called like this very serpent-like face paint.
Yeah,
And
I think that's a good way to describe it.
he immediately sprays green mist in the air.
Yeah, so the bell rings, and Muta immediately he puts his finger to his throat.
Yeah, I thought he was like checking his pulse. What is
as
he
if
doing?
it's almost as if he's activating his venom. I mean, it's
It's crazy.
It looked so like it just added this extra layer of realism to how he's able to spit out the green mist.
And he's got that green tongue afterwards, right? Like it's just the visuals are really really quite intense, and it as the match starts going on, Muta obviously the heel, right? That's clear, but it's only made more clear by when he goes out of the ring and starts scaring the crowd.
Yeah, he takes a powder. The bell rings. Powder, like blah, to fans.
Literally goes up into fans' faces, and you.
Yeah, you're gonna hear a child go. Ah! You hear like a child start screaming. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude.
He's terrifying. I mean, he legitimately is terrifying. Liger gets sort of the early advantage in the match, right?
Easily out wrestles Muta.
Yeah, he's just quick. He's using that speed. And I'll tell you what, Muta does not like it at all. He does not like being taken advantage of, and he goes outside of the ring on several occasions. That's where he goes to scare the crowd. He does this great look into the camera, right, where, like straight on into the camera, where he just slashes his throat, and that's beautiful.
Well, his tongue comes out, and you can see like the green ooze like dripping down the side of his face.
He's essentially there to intimidate any and everything inside the Kobe World Hall.
Oh,
Yeah,
and he is,
and it's working
because that crowd is like. Now, the first time I watched it, I always have to remind myself, especially in the mid '90s, that crowd is going to be silent.
Yeah.
Until there's like a big sequence, then they're going to cheer and go back to silence. Every time Muta does something, you hear this.
Yeah, and one of my favorite parts is when Muta actually walks back out to the ramp, and he just stands there for a minute, and then he looks to the crowd really quickly, and he looks at this one guy. And the guy immediately gets up and runs.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on?
It was hilarious.
Yeah, we're like 2 minutes in, and like it's just been Muta scaring the shit out of people in the crowd.
Yeah, Muta gets into the ring, and every time he gets back in the ring, Liger's there to strike him, right, and kind of take advantage. It isn't until Muta hits a really powerful running elbow.
Oh yeah.
To where Muta really gets his first good offensive maneuver in, and then Liger has to take a second outside the ring because it was a little bit jarring, right? Muta, obviously the bigger man, hitting him with that elbow was definitely kind of a shock to the system.
And I love it because when Liger comes back in, Muta's like, test of strength? Oh, I got to test. No, immediately kicks him in the stomach and then beats the shit out of him. Yeah, he just whips him to the corner and just absolutely obliterates Liger, and it's scary.
Liger gets a chance to kind of get the advantage back though after sort of the flurry from Muta, but it turns into where it looks like Liger is hitting these moves and they're just pissing Muta off.
Yeah, like no effect. I mean, he hits a spinning wheel kick at one point, which seems to kind of like stun Muta, who then powders out, rips up the crash mats, and then crawls back in the ring.
Right. He's pissed off. I mean, Muta's scary on his own, but get him angry, and I don't want anything to do with it, right? It's just terrifying. And so Liger's now kind of playing off of this, ultra, what can he do offensively, because it's just going to bounce right off of Muta.
Pretty much. He throws like hard kicks, elbows, suplexes, but Muta just keeps kind of like getting back up and will not stop fighting. And then, holy shit, Muta, as if to say, fuck your suplex, throws Liger out of the ring, throws him over the barricade, pile drives him through a fucking table, and then strangles him with a camera cord.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
What the fuck? And then he picks up the leg of the table and starts hitting Liger in the head.
Well, yeah, he tries to put the table back up, and it very comedically falls twice, and like some people in the front row laugh, and he looks at him like
they stop laughing. Then
they stop laughing.
He takes charge of the table and just starts smashing Liger in the head with it.
Right, that table didn't know what it was doing, pissing Muta off.
Oh,
right,
no.
So he just takes advantage. But how crazy was that, right? Like Liger's kind of wrestling this match, and then all of a sudden Muta gets pissed off and pile drives him through a table. I mean, what is that?
Yeah,
in '96,
Right.
yeah.
And the table is not like right outside the ring or set up in the ring. The table's like in the front row of the crowd.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's essentially pile driving Liger into the laps of the people in the front row.
And anything we know about Japanese tables, they don't always break. This thing shatters.
They look way sturdier. I mean, they look sturdy.
Well, I think it's because it was like a skinnier table.
Yeah.
But like when he hits it, you hear it, and it
And-
breaks into about 4 pieces.
This is the point where it's not a wrestling match anymore.
No.
I legitimately feel like I'm watching a horror flick.
This is a fight to the death.
No matter what Liger does, he's got like these back suplexes, pile drivers, dives. Muta just gets right back up every time.
Man, when Liger gets rolled back into the ring after the pile driver through the table, Muta grabs like some sort of pole of some kind.
Yeah, I have no idea what that was.
I have no
It
idea
looked
what-
like a flag
Yeah.
Couldn't tell.
with a really pointy end.
It
He
looked real
jabs him,
heavy.
like in the stomach with it a couple
Like
times.
a fucking 20-foot javelin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
but-
he just shoves it under the bottom rope and hits Liger while he's lying there. That was pretty gross. I mean, like, it was serious.
But yeah, when they get back in the ring, like you said, Liger hits a desperation pile driver. Muta just gets up and just goes,
Yeah, absolutely no effect. A fucking pile driver. Nothing.
so Liger's like, fuck this. they go to the ramp. Then Liger gets suplexed on the ramp, and then I'm like, what the fuck is Muta doing? So he walks from like the edge of the ring all the way to the entrance, and then sprints full speed for a clothesline.
Like, runs the entire length of the ramp.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean it's scary. I mean, seeing a guy like that who you've been hitting all of your best moves against, you know he's in a heavyweight division that's a little bit higher up. You know, you've still been having difficulty beating people in that division, and he's been intimidating everybody in the arena. He just pokes you with a fucking javelin, and here he is running full speed down the ramp right at your face. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
terrifying.
And I mean, he was fucking sprinting.
Oh, yeah, it was full.
Because that was like
full
a
on.
100-yard ramp, and he cleared it in like 6 seconds. Ridiculous. Oh man.
At one point, Muta gets him back in the ring and back suplexes Liger.
Oh.
And turns over for the cover and pins Liger just by placing his hands on Liger's chest and arching up his back. It's the most intimidating pin cover I think I've ever
He
seen.
looks like a cobra. When he does
Yeah,
that.
it's crazy.
Muta definitely has a way of almost and I thought this a couple of times during the match where he almost looks less than human.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
I
obviously,
agree.
the mist and just like really sort of
like the way he moves his body.
yeah, mannerisms like that. It's exactly like that pin cover that you're talking about, Landon,
He's
where you're like, oh my god, like it's creepy.
It's like a snake demon.
Yeah.
He's incredibly smart and in tune with his character, and it's a lot of fun to see. When Liger does get in some offense, Muta decides to slither under the ring.
Yeah. And Liger says, fuck it, I'm going under the ring.
Yeah,
So
Liger's
men-
a superhero, so he's like, let's go get the bad guy.
Both men are just crawling under the ring. The camera goes under there, and I'm like, they're going to show us under the ring? And I'm like,
Yeah.
And there's like nothing there.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting to actually get a sneak peek at what's under the ring.
Well, you could see how the posts work. You could see the spring in the middle,
right?
which is kind of like kayfabe shattering. But there's really nothing under there. There's a bag with extra ropes in it, and like whatever the fuck that javelin device was. That's it. It's basically just empty.
Muta comes out from under the ring with
he's
a
like-
with a broom.
Yeah, he's like looking around like,
He's like, "All right, it's time to clean this shit up."
and he's like, where the fuck is Liger? He's just looking around. And then Liger just kind of comes out. I'm like, oh, he doesn't have a weapon. Boo.
Yeah. Muta starts choking Liger and tears off his mask.
And I got to say, the first time I watched this match, I had no idea what was about to happen.
Oh, me either. Me either. I was like,
But he rips that fucking mask to shreds.
my mouth was wide open.
And I'm sitting here going, wait, we're going to see Muta's face? No, sorry, we're going to see Liger's face? And then, Landon, tell us what happens.
Well, with the ripping of the mask, we finally see for the very first time, the unleashing of Kenshin Liger. And actually, at one point, Liger rips off his shirt not too long after this and reveals like marks on his body,
Yes.
making him appear like transformed or possessed. It almost reminds me of Devil Jin from Tekken.
Well, this is pre-Devil Jin.
That's
So,
true.
yeah.
That's true.
I think, though, what you're glossing over is Liger sprays green mist into Muta's face.
He
and for the
does.
first time in the match, Muta falls down like, screaming in pain.
He does.
And he tears off that suit, and he's got the demonic-looking writing on him like, oh, my God, what is
So,
happening?
The name Kishin carries with it connotations to like these deities. Like if you look at what the kanji translates to, it's like a fierce god, which can also be read as like the god of the oni demons or Kijin. The word is in totality a universal spirit of all creation, both living and dead. It can also suggest the idea of extremely powerful latent ability, which are traits that Kishin Liger clearly demonstrates here.
Well, I mean, he looks like an undead.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's crazy to think that this side of Liger is only brought to light four times throughout his 30-plus year career.
So yeah, this is the first time. So against the Great Muta, the next time was 10 years later.
So yeah, like Paul said, Kishin does use mist of his own, and he goes under the ring.
He grabs a fucking spike.
Well, he grabs the spike, but the first thing he grabs was like brass knucks, or something to that effect.
I think it was brass knucks because
he
he smashes Muta with them, and then, like I said, Muta is like he's reeling. He's scared. He's showing signs of fear.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have this demonic entity across from you, which I guess you could argue that Muta is somewhat of a demonic himself. But you have this unexpected hero transforming into this possessed otherworldly deity in the ring across from you. I mean, this is literally what's going on in the middle of the ring. It's insane.
Yeah, because like Muta had grabbed a chair and he was about to like execute Liger, and then all of a sudden, green mist. He gets hit with brass knuckles, a spike, and then he gets battered with the chair to the point where we get a top rope chair shot to the outside and then a fucking pile driver on the outside.
That diving chair shot, like Liger off the top rope to Muta, I was like, these can't be human beings.
They're not. And the only thing I could think of when he did that was Mike Awesome and Tanaka.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very much like that.
Because it made the exact same sound.
Well, there's a moment where they're back in the ring and they have the table set up in the corner, and Liger goes to, it looks like he's going to try to impale Muta onto the table.
Oh, it's scary.
And Muta he moves at the last second, and the shiv gets stuck into the table. I'm not going to lie, I screamed like a little girl when I saw that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh God, that's real?
Oh my God.
That was like shades of Tully Blanchard and Magnum. We're like, oh God.
Yeah.
They tried to kill him. And what happens? For the very first time in his career, Muta sprays red mist.
Right?
And we're like, there's different layers of mist?
It was insane.
I'm so glad you asked me. Gentlemen, do you know how many different layers of mist there are in wrestling?
I didn't ask you.
Yes, you did.
I would like, hey, Paul, how many layers of mist are there in wrestling?
There are 3.
Okay.
And all 3 have different status elements to them. So there is green or poison mist, which is a temporarily blinding factor and slowly lowers your HP, making you weaker. There is the red mist, which cuts your the red mist cuts your defense in half and also temporarily blinds you. And then the seldom used, the black mist.
Oh,
The black mist renders you unconscious immediately and will blind you for 10 days.
Damn.
do you know when the black mist was used?
Tajiri started doing it.
Oh,
He used it against The Undertaker and, for some reason, Nydia.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, and she was blind for 2 weeks.
how about
She was
that?
led to the ring via Paul Heyman on multiple occasions.
We got Paul over here, keeper of the mist.
Yes.
That's good. Man, so we do get the red mist, although apparently not the strongest form.
No, but it's double the. It's like I said, it's double the power of green mist.
And it's devastating at this point, right?
Because this unstoppable Kishin Liger is like, oh, cells.
And Muta gets on the top rope and hits this beautiful moonsault. You know, in a match that had very little wrestling moves, that moonsault at the end.
Well, you forgot to mention he does hit the backspring hand elbow.
That's
Yeah,
true.
he hits
does
the
hit that on
backspring
table. He
hand
hits that on the
elbow,
table.
and he takes the shiv.
Yes,
he
he
takes
does.
the spike.
He does take
and
the
and
shiv.
actually whacks Liger in the head with it.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was kind of brutal.
Yeah, he does like a running bulldog with like the shiv in his hand, and that's when he hits the moonsault. And I'm like, what are these guys going to do next?
But yeah, the moonsault gets Muta the 1-2-3 here, narrowly escaping the threat of Kishin Liger.
What a roller coaster, guys.
I agree. So when I first started watching this match, I had no idea we were going to see Kishin Liger, and I had no idea we were going to see the fucking red mist. And I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, was not at all prepared.
There's so much like deep, like career-altering storytelling happening in this match. We have the debut of an alter ego, a demonic, unstoppable alter ego, and we have the red mist.
Yeah, it feels like there's a certain moment where this match switches, right? Where you've got Liger, who's sort of fighting this uphill battle against Muta, who is very, evil looking and sinister. But then it switches halfway through when Liger, obviously he changes and transforms. And so I feel like I'm not even watching a wrestling match. It feels like I'm watching, two larger than life non-human characters.
You know what it reminded me
brawl.
of? It reminded me of in Dragon Ball Z when Goku fights Frieza.
Hey, that's good.
I totally see that.
That's what it made me think of, because Frieza is just toying with him and overpowering him. He's just getting more frustrated. Goku can't do anything. And then when he becomes Super Saiyan, he has the upper hand. Only difference here is that Frieza somehow overpowers Goku and wins.
Yeah, well, I think I think it still fits because Frieza is able to escape and survive.
That's true.
And that's
whenever
does, yeah.
Frieza,
That's what Muta does.
Yeah.
He survives this match. I wouldn't say it's a victory.
no,
Not one that you would expect going into it. That's for sure.
No matter what, it makes Muta look weak. It makes Muta look beatable.
We talk about on this show, and we reference it kind of ever since we did the episode. We reference it again and again. Is how going into the match, Bret Hart and Steve Austin left their WrestleMania match two completely different characters. This match feels that way.
They did. They definitely left us two different people.
Yeah, you definitely saw a side of Liger that to where you would never look at him the same way again.
Right.
And I know when we mentioned the Kishin Liger, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other 3 times that Kishin Liger appeared. So this was his first appearance on October the 20th, 1996. His next appearance is July the 30th, 2006, 10 years later.
Yeah, can you imagine seeing this happen in a match and then all of a sudden, oh, we just get Liger again. Okay. Are you? Is he gonna?
No.
Is he gonna?
10 years, and it wasn't like they built it up. It just, once again, it just happened. Like in the middle, he's having a match against his rival at that point, Bad Boy Hito, and he just tore off Liger's mask in the match, and then all of a sudden, there he is, Kishin Liger, and then he steamrolls. He steamrolls him. The next one is another. Is it 6 years later in 2012? So he was in a feud with Taishi at that point, and Taishi just ripped his mask up before the match. And so he wrestled the entire match as Kishin Liger.
Damn.
And the final time, which is actually very recently, he was having a battle against Miyamoto Suzuki in 2019. And about midway through the match, all of a sudden, Liger ripped his own mask off to reveal the paint. And the commentators just go, "Oh, it's Kishin Liger." And I'm like, what? What is this? I don't know what this is. Because they're talking about, like, it's this massive deal. And it was, but I had no idea what was going on. And then I immediately go, I want to Google this right now.
Yeah.
Who is Kishin Liger? I'm like, oh, this is only the 4th time in the man's 38-year career we've seen this character pop up.
Insane. Absolutely insane.
Needless to say, he defeats Suzuki. And then he even beats the shit out of Tanahashi afterwards.
Yeah, and I have to say, it was truly an amazing way for him to kind of end 2019, kind of sunset his career, and then his final 2 matches at Wrestle Kingdom 14 were really a joy to watch. And you always see wrestlers go out on their back, and that's kind of how it's done.
I agree.
And I think the fact that he was pinned by the junior heavyweight champion in his very last match,
Boy, does that make sense.
really makes a lot of sense.
But my favorite thing about all of that is after the match was over, he put his robe back on, and they rang the bell 10 times to complete silence.
Japan does it right.
I mean, come on. It doesn't get any better than that.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is after Taker lost at 33 and we thought he was done, when they just left his hat and gloves and the jacket in the ring, and they did not move it until they were done tearing the rest of the arena down. And I'm like, yeah.
I would have been happy if that was the last time we saw Undertaker.
I mean, it didn't. I actually kind of really enjoyed his 2-minute squash match against Cena at 34.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah,
I did too, because it was like, holy shit, I didn't know he could still do this. Once again, that should have been it.
But I mean, to your point, being there at WrestleMania 33, I mean, people were sobbing. Right,
Yeah,
they were
because-
just. I mean, similar to that Liger reaction, right? It's like silence, like respect, right? It was just.
That's the picture textbook perfect way to end your career.
Yeah, it's a character. Going back to Liger, it's a character that has been a household name in professional wrestling for 40 years, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able,
1982.
yeah, to be able to pay respects that way, even though he loses the match. He does it the right way, and they still pay respect to him afterwards. It was just really incredible.
I'll be honest, I welled up a little bit.
Yeah.
It was emotional.
I'm a crier. I totally did.
So, guys, what is your favorite moments from Jushin Thunder Liger versus the Great Muta?
Gee, oh God.
The transformation.
Yeah, just
into
like
Jushin Liger.
it's
I mean,
just
I love it.
it's
so much.
iconic.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm shocked that he didn't do it more often than he did, but I guess even he realized, oh no, this is special. I'm going to make them wait for this.
Yeah, it was a genius move, and I think it only makes him more enigmatic and mysterious.
This is also the only time that Kishin Liger was defeated. The other 3 times he won those matches.
Yeah.
Including the most recent one where he tried to kill. Yeah, because I noticed I told you he beat Suzuki, and then he was fought off by the Young Lions and Tanahashi. They were trying to stop him from impaling Suzuki with the spike.
Yeah, I mean, he's demon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, transformation, obviously.
Yeah, I think this would be the first time where I think we all had a very clear cut favorite. Like in all the other matches we've done so far, there's been like, oh, I like this, and yeah, we did like a lot of other things in this match, but there was something about that moment, that transformation.
It was just
it's one of the most iconic moments in professional wrestling history.
I agree. And then, I mean, their entrances were both fucking awesome.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Demon Oni Muta coming out against like Power Ranger Megazord Liger. I mean,
Do you think we'll have as much luck being unanimous about where to rank it?
I don't know. I feel like this match is like a clear cut for where I think it would go. I don't think this is like because the first thing we always say is, okay, will this break the top 20?
Right.
I think it would just barely edge out. I think this would probably not break the top 10, but it would definitely break the top 20.
I think you made a point about comparing it to Awesome and Tanaka, and that's sort of around where I put it on the list right now.
That was too, because I remember I think you asked me the other day, like, what do you think? I said, I definitely think this goes in our list. And I remember I said, I don't think this would break 10, but I definitely would put this like somewhere between like 15 and 18. That's like right in that match.
I think that's perfect, Paul. I would put it at the new 16, right above the Royal Rumble.
I was actually thinking, because honestly, the whole time I'm watching this match, I'm like, this feels very like Undertaker style.
Yeah.
I feel like the Great Muta was like I don't want to call him the Undertaker of New Japan because he was a very different character, but I think that's the closest thing we have in America is the Undertaker.
I think that's a good point. I think that's a really good
Especially in '96.
Yeah, I think if you had to compare it to something, the obvious choice is the Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome match.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree that this match has more rewatchability and had more impact.
It's
so
the
fun.
92
Oh,
Rumble.
it's a lot of fun. It's like watching a horror film. It's amazing.
Yeah. Let's do it. 16.
16?
I'm down.
We are unanimous.
How about that? Man, welcome to our last episode of Last Match Standing.
That'll never happen again.
It's only happened 3 times, guys.
That was incredible. Number 16, I feel really confident with that.
I did too.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, of course this means that all of our listeners hate it probably, but
I'm sure.
I don't know. I think people will probably understand why we came with that one, but we'll see.
yeah. Listen, like we said, this was just, we felt like we had to do a Liger match, and I'm so glad we did this one. But if you have a suggestion, if you have a Liger match that you think also deserves to make the list, let us know. Shoot us a tweet at LastMatchCast. You can also shoot us an email at lastmatchstanding@gmail.com. We want all your match suggestions, right? So we are more than happy to look at more Liger. Give us all the Liger. We love a Liger. So
I want to watch the one you were talking about from like the G1 Climax. Is it 92? Was it?
yeah, it was one of them that we mentioned. We've got plenty of options, right? So happy to watch those. And this is, it's just so fun to be able to look at sort of this, kind of like Landon said earlier, where these sort of matches that we didn't have access to them until relatively recently.
Yes.
So great that we get to watch stuff like this. And, Liger was full of great moments in his career, and we're obviously sad to see that it's over, but grateful that he left us with moments like these, which are going to be some of the greatest matches of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
Until next time, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Landon.
And this is
Is
Last Match Standing.
Thank you, Liger.